you handle it in your life when you feel like things are just crashing in on you? Like things from all angles seem to be overwhelming and just threatening to just drown you at any moment. This has happened in my life so many times that I don't even think that I could count them if I wanted to. The best example of my world crashing in on me that I can think of is when I was living in Wisconsin and I was working for a church there, and ministry there was just really, really rocking. I mean, things were so good in my life. We had more students involved in our program than we could ever imagine. I had 2 kids at home and I thought that things were really, really great. And then one day when I came home, I met my husband there, and he said that he wanted out of our marriage, and then he left. He left me and the 2 kids. You see, these things happen, like illnesses and accidents and job loss and miscarriages and legal battles and death and even a pandemic. These events, they come into our lives and pull the rug out from under us. They take away our breath. They make us feel like the walls are caving in and that we just can't keep it together. It feels like things are crashing down on us. So how do you deal with things when they feel like they are crashing down all around you? I think we all have some kind of default mechanism that we have when these things happen to us. Maybe we just try and avoid the situation, or maybe we blame other people when these things happen, or maybe we blame ourselves. Or maybe we try and numb the situation, or we try and avoid it. And so we do things like take our comfort in food or in alcohol or in binging Netflix. Or maybe we are a person who just jumps into action and we try really hard to just keep the walls from crashing in, to just fix it ourselves, and we overfunction in great busyness. So friends, how do you deal with things when it feels like life is crashing in around you? In the Bible, in the Old Testament, there's this little book, and it was written about 600 years before the time of Jesus, and it's called Habakkuk. And it's this little 3-chapter book. It's just so short that you could just read it in one quick little sitting. And it's a story about this minor prophet named Habakkuk, and he starts with this moment where he feels like things are crashing in around him, this moment where he feels like he has lost hope. And in this first chapter, he is lamenting to the Lord right there in verse 2. You see, the Israelites, his people, they had basically not listened to God, and they had not kept up to their end of the commandments. And so God had exiled them, and there was this group called the Chaldeans, and they were taking over. And Habakkuk, he just doesn't know what to do about it. And so he laments. He says, "Oh, how long, Lord, must I call for your help, and you do not listen?" This is what we do too when things crash in on us. How long, Lord, will you not listen to me? But for Habakkuk, something surprising happens. You see, in his lament, God answers. God says to him, "I'm going to do something that you wouldn't even believe if I told you I would do it." Isn't that amazing? I'm going to do something that you wouldn't even believe if I told you. For me, after my first husband left me with my 2 children, I decided that I was never, ever going to date ever again. And after time and lots of prayer and counseling and healing, I realized that I didn't really know what I had hoped for in a spouse. I didn't really know what I wanted in a husband. And so a friend had encouraged me to make a list of all the hopes for all the attributes that I would want in a husband. And I came up with the list, and it's pretty extra. It's pretty pretentious. I came up with a list of 156 items, right? So I had this entire pretentious list, and this same person that told me to write this list, she told me to be very, very specific about my list. And now I'm not going to tell you my whole list, but I was so super specific. There were things on my list like loves camping and speaks a foreign language and Christian and ELCA Lutheran and calls his grandparents regularly and can read music. I had a few things on my list that were considered non-negotiables. Things like he had to be a Christian and he had to be college educated, since those were values of mine. And I figured that if I finally met someone who got to about 50% of my list, so what is that, like 85 things, then they would be a really good catch. That'd be a really good person for me to date. So my list was made. I had my hopes and I was vulnerable. I just put it all out there on this piece of paper, and I figured that if God wanted me to date someone after my divorce, that he was going to have to make it really, really obvious for me. And in the book of Habakkuk, a similar thing happens. God tells Habakkuk to write it down. He says, make a list. God said, write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets. You see, God wanted Habakkuk to have a document, a written revelation, basically saying, hey, Habakkuk, I want you to write this down so I can prove to you that I am just and true. And you'll remember then when you reread it that I am a God of my word, and that in the midst of this chaos and in the midst of this mess, you will see, Habakkuk, that I am faithful. So what if when things are crashing down all around us, what if we write about it? What if we write about it and keep a record of our frustrations? We keep a record of our prayers and our hopes. You see, writing helps us to see what God has done when we look back on it. A couple of years after my divorce, I met this guy, Larson, at church, and we became friends. And he really liked camping, and he spoke Swahili, which is kind of weird. And he was an ELCA Lutheran, and he definitely talked to his grandma at least once a week. You see, he played piano, and he had gotten a college degree in geology. And I had forgotten about my list by then, but after we were married, I found my list in an old journal. And if you're wondering how many characteristics, how many hopes that my Ryan has from my pretentious list of 156, he has every single one. When the world feels like it's crashing down on you and that you are in need of hope, write it down. Jot it down, because God has got you more than you could ever possibly imagine. And if you know someone who could use this message today, someone who it seems like their world is crashing down and they need a message of hope, would you do me a favor? Would you go ahead and share this onto your Facebook page? Maybe consider tagging them in that post. And if you're somebody who's watching on YouTube, would you go ahead and hit the bell and subscribe? And if you're joining us on cable access, tell someone to sit down with you tomorrow and hear this message of hope that God has got you more than you could ever possibly know.
Come out of sadness from wherever you've been. Come broken-hearted, let rescue begin. Come find your mercy, O sinner, be still. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home, you're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, come as you are.
There's hope for the hopeless and all who have strayed. Come sit at the table, come taste the grace that rests for the weary, rest that endures. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can cure. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can cure.
So lay down your burden, lay down your shame. All who are broken, come as you are.
There's joy in the morning, oh sinner, be still. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal.
So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home. You're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart.